Hey guys, it's Byron back with another video, and on this Fundamental Friday I want to share with y'all ways that I wholesale in order to mitigate my risk, right? So what risk do you take on when you wholesale? Well, it's not a bunch of risks, right? You don't use your you don't use your cash when you're wholesaling, and you don't use your credit when you're wholesaling. So what are you really risking? Well, there is a part of the contract where you are required to put down an earnest money deposit, which shows good faith. Which shows good faith towards the seller that you will actually close on the property, right? So this earnest money deposit, many times I get from my buyer and I put it as a down payment. However, that earnest money deposit can be lost, right? How is that earnest money deposit lost? Well, it's lost when you don't fulfill what's written within the contract, right? When you default on the contract, that earnest money now could be forfeited to the seller. So how do you mitigate that risk? Well, at first, when I first started wholesaling, I started using a due diligence period. During your due diligence period, you have the right to go view the property. You have the right to do whatever you need to do to go and research the property to figure out if you really want to purchase the property or not. And you reserve the right to withdraw from the contract within that due diligence period. Now, after the due diligence period is over, that's when you're locked in. And if you back out, that earnest money could potentially be lost. Well, after experiencing many situations where the due diligence period, was really tight and didn't work out for me, and there's been a time or two where I've lost earnest money, I began to use a clause that has been able to help me really mitigate that risk, which is I took the due diligence period out of the contract and I put a clause in the contract that says this agreement is contingent upon inspection, suitable to purchaser, right? So what happens is when I get that person on the contract, I can send the buyer out and they can view the property. And if they don't want to buy the property at that price, then I can withdraw from the contract because the contract was based on an inspection suitable to purchaser, and that buyer doesn't want to buy the property now because of the inspection, then I'm withdrawing from that contract because the inspection was not suitable to the purchaser, right? So that's one way I've been able to mitigate the risk, right? And what happens is when the buyer does inspect, then I'll get the buyer under contract with no due diligence period, or if they still want a day or two, I let that day or two pass by before I let the seller know, hey, you passed the inspection, right? And I make sure, one, that the buyer is locked in and that their earnest money is on the line and that their earnest money is more than my earnest money. So if in the purchase and sales agreement between me and the seller, if I say I'm going to put down $500,000, I make the buyer put down $1,000 or $2,000, right? So that's how I mitigate my risk when it comes to wholesaling. The main risk that you have is that earnest money deposit, and that's how I go about wholesaling and mitigating that risk. So that's my Fundamental Friday. That's a fundamental that anybody can use in order to help their wholesale business. So I hope that helped you guys. Make sure you leave a comment, like, subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff. And let me know if there's any other fundamentals that you might be interested in knowing about my wholesale business.